Hello everyone, welcome to the Radiance Hub YouTube channel. Today we will talk about the term modernism. The term is widely used to identify new and distinctive features in the subjects, forms, concepts, and styles of literature and the other arts in early decades of the 20th century, but especially after World War I, 1914 to 1918. See, the time period is very important. When we have to talk of modernism, it is mainly after First World War. When we talk of postmodernism, it is after Second World War. Okay, so this particular term is used to identify new and distinctive features. New, you understand? Distinctive, something that can be distinguished, that is very much visible. So, new and distinctive features where? In the subjects, forms, concepts, and styles of literature. And not only literature, literature and the other arts. In the early decades, means 20th century's early decades, that will begin from 1901, so 1910, 1920, 1930, like that. So we have the exact years after 1918, as we talked of, especially after First World War. The specific features, when we talk of the features, modernism involves a deliberate and radical break with some of the traditional bases, not only on Western art but of Western culture in general. Again, the words, those are highlighted here. Initially we talked about subjects, forms, concepts and styles. Now we'll talk of deliberate and radical break. Deliberate means by choice, radical, something that is very different, revolutionary kind of thing. So a deliberate and radical break with this, some of the traditional bases. So obviously in modernism we have a break from traditional bases, and this again not only involves the art but also the Western culture in general. Now if we talk about intellectual precursor, you understand, one term we have pioneer or initiator. Before them, before the pioneers, we have precursors. Okay, as you can say, Thomas Gray is a precursor of romanticism. He was not the pioneer, he actually existed before pioneers. In the similar manner, here we are having intellectual precursors of modernism, and in them we have the thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who belongs to 1844 to 1900. Then we have Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud. So these intellectual precursors of modernism, in this sense, are thinkers who had questioned the certainties that had supported traditional modes of social organization, religion, and morality, and also traditional ways of conceiving the human self. Now see how these all traditional modes, they came into question. Social organization was questioned, religion, actually when we talk of religion, we must remember that publication of Origins of the Species in 1859 by Charles Darwin, how that uh, plays a pivotal role in reaching to modernism. So religion and morality, Victorian morality kind of concept that we had there in the time of Victoria, and also traditional ways of conceiving the human self. The way human self is represented, it also came to questioning. So all sort of questioning started with the people like German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who is known for his use of Ellen Whittle life force theory, known for his phrase "God is dead," or you can say yes, and Karl Marx Communist Manifesto. We who doesn't know Karl Marx? Everybody knows, especially the people of philosophy and literature. Then we have, you know, father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, known for his the interpretation of dreams and concepts like consciousness, subconsciousness, unconsciousness, id, ego, superego. Okay, now when we talk of this contribution in modernism, we should remember this person, James G. Fraser. He wrote a 12-volume book, and the name of that book was Golden Bough. It stressed the correspondence between central Christian tenets and pagan who does not belong to any mainstream religion. Okay, so Christian tenets and pagan, their relationship, often barbaric myths and rituals. Actually, in post-colonialism, we understand that how many a times when you don't understand the people or the person or the culture, you call them barbaric, uncivilized, and uncultured, and all sort of terms you use for them. So James G. Fraser wrote a 12-volume book, Golden Bough. It stressed the correspondence between central Christian tenets and pagan, that is often barbaric, myths and rituals. These all were included in that 12-volume book by James J. Fraser. Now, if we try to trace the timing or the chronology, some literary historians locate the beginning of the modernist revolt as far back as the 1890s. As we initially talked about that how literature or the trends existing after first world war actually comes under modernism. Now if we go, if you have a flashback, there we are witnessing that how some literary historians, they thought that modernist revolt actually took place in 1890s, but most agree that what is called a high modernism, marked by an unexampled scope and rapidity of change, this all came after the First World War. Means you can trace the beginning from 1890s, but actually this high modernism kind of thing took place after First World War. And the way it is, unexampled scope that we see, or rapidity of change. Rapidity of change means, that the kind of change that you can understand very easily. You can comprehend. You can visualize very easily. You can mark very easily. So that happened after First World War. Yeah, very good PPT is made here. Very beautiful, it seems. Now, while talking of modernism, we can't forget some great works through which it's very easy to understand what modernism is all about. Some works, those were published in a particular year, and that was 1922. The appearance of such monuments of modernist innovation we perceive in 1922. We have a novel Ulysses by James Joyce, in which a stream of consciousness is applied. We have the great work of Thomas Stearns Eliot, that is T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, it published in 1922. We have Virginia Woolf's novel Jacob's Room. These all are, experimental works of literature and other works also came into existence in this particular year 1922. Now we'll try to understand the causes of modernism, how such changes took place, what were the reasons. The catastrophe of the war had shaken faith in the moral basis, coherence and durability of Western civilization, and raised doubts about the adequacy of traditional literary modes to represent the harsh and dissonant realities of the post-war world. When the things like World War, especially First World War, we are talking about, that took place, that actually shook the health, shook the faith of the people. They lost their faith in moral basis. Coherence was no more, and durability of Western civilization didn't matter at that time. Doubts were taking place, and this traditional literary modes actually uh, they were not that much educated to portray that scenario, because the harsh and dissonant reality that existed in post-war period, it actually needed a different style, different presentation, different language, I mean to say different way of language. And that you can witness very easily, you can understand very easily through T.S. Eliot's remark that he did in the review of uh, James Joyce's Ulysses, that he did in 1923, that the inherited mode of ordering a literary work, which assumed a relatively coherent and stable social order, could not accord with. Actually, the way, the kind of literature that was needed at that time in post-war period, he says, it does not accord with the immense panorama of futility and anarchy which is contemporary history. So these are the quotations, some quotation by T.S. Eliot, the words of T.S. Eliot. How does he represent contemporary society of him? He says, the immense panorama of futility and anarchy which is contemporary history. So this immense panorama of futility could not be understood through traditional mode of writing. The kind of anarchy that was there in his contemporary history, he says, the inherited mode of ordering a literary work which assumed a relatively coherent and stable social order that was there before modernism. Now he says in modernism, these things will not be able to portray the current reality or the current scenario. Like Joyce and like Ezra Pound in his cantos, means through his writing as well, he instructed the same. Eliot experimented with new forms and a new style. So Eliot also accepted new forms and new style, as we'll talk of Ezra Pound's phrase, make it new, how modernism was thought to be there. So Eliot also accepted new forms and new style that would render contemporary disorder, the kind of disorder that was there in post-war period, often contrasting it to a lost order, the order that was there before modernism. It was lost. And integration that he claimed had been based on the religion and myths of the cultural past. So now, these new forms and new style was, uh, you know, in contrast, the kind of disorder that was there, it was in contrast with that lost order and integration. Actually, the past, which was, based on religion and myths of the cultural past, uh, that was not there in modernism. If we talk of the work The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, that was published in 1922, for example, in that particular work, Eliot replaced the standard syntactic flow of poetic language by fragmented utterances. This is the difference that you see. Initially, before modernism, we did not perceive such thing. We know that the poetic language or syntactic flow was very good there before modernism, but here in modernism, in T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, we find fragmented utterances, means not complete sentences or complete utterances, and substituted for the traditional type of coherent poetic structure. So, in the place of syntax, complete sentences of poetic language, we observe, we witness fragmented utterances there by T.S. Eliot in The Wasteland. And in the place of coherent poetic structure, we see a deliberate dislocation of parts. Okay, in which very diverse components are related by connections that are left to the reader to discover. So everything is not elaborated. Now the effort should be more there with the reader. As we know how Eliot said that if anybody wants to understand the reality, or if anybody wants to understand the text written by him, that person should elevate the understanding. That was the only way. Major works of modernist fiction, following Joyce's Ulysses and his even more radical Finnegan's Wake 1939, subvert the basic conventions of the earlier prose fiction. Now, when you talk of modernist fiction, there we have Joyce's Ulysses. When you talk of his other work, that is Finnegan's Wake, that was considered to be more radical, it published in 1939. And what did such works do? They subverted the basic conventions. What is subvert? A very favorite word by M.H. Abrams. They subverted the basic conventions of earlier prose fiction by breaking up the narrative continuity. Initially, before modernism, we had narrative continuity in the works of, D.H. Lawrence or Thomas Hardy kind of people. Here, what do we see? Breaking of the narrative continuity, departing from the standard ways of representing characters, and violating the traditional syntax and coherence. And that is why this stream of consciousness took place in Virginia Woolf's writing, in James Joyce's writing. That was other innovative mode of narration. Other changes also took place. We'll talk about that in later video. That's all for today here. Thank you.